Welcome back. In this video, we will be focusing on what the interphase learners need to know about time. From video 4 about the DBE's revised teaching plan for term 4, you will remember that time is a topic in the grade 5 and 6 curriculum. Grade 4 and 7 learners will not be dealing with the topic of time in this term. Grade 5 learners will have the opportunity to read time and time instruments, read calendars, do calculations and solving problems relating to time. The grade 6s will do all of this and also learn about time zones and time differences based on time zones. Before teaching your learners about time, remind them how important time is in our lives. Time is something that goes on non-stop. Many years ago, people followed time using the sun, the moon and the weather. Today we follow time with clocks and calendars. The following is a fun activity that you can use as an icebreaker for a lesson about time. Show your learners pictures illustrating activities that they would typically do during the course of a normal school morning. Ask learners that if the school day starts at 8 o'clock in the morning and they don't want to be late, what time do they think they would have to get up in the morning, make their beds, eat breakfast, take a taxi or bus to school or walk to school, arrive at school and still have time to greet or play with their friends before the bell rings. Explain to the learners that we measure time in seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months and years. Ask the learners, how long does it take the Earth to go around the Sun? It takes 1 year, as you know. Do a spot quiz and check how many of your learners know the number of days in a week, the number of days in a year, the number of weeks in a year, and the number of months in a year. As a final question in your quiz, ask your learners to tell you what a leap year is. Explain to your learners that the leap year is a year containing an extra day. It has 366 days instead of the normal 365 days. The extra day is added in February, which has 29 days instead of the normal 28 days. Explain to your learners that the extra day in the month of February every 4 years is a combination of 4 one-quarter days. This is because the Earth does not rotate around the Sun in exactly 365 days. It is actually 365 and a quarter days. Tell your learners that a calendar is a chart or pages showing the days, weeks and months of a specific year, which varies for every consecutive year. Ask your learners to identify their birth date on the calendar and write it in different ways. Example, 25 September 2021, September 25, 2021, 25.09.2021, etc. As a teacher, you need to ensure that your learners recognize all possibilities of dates and are able to read it. Ask the learners to make fists with their hands and hold them up next to each other, like in the diagram above, with their thumbs tucked in. On the knuckle is 31 days and in between the knuckles is 30 days, except February. Ask your learners how many months has 31 days. Ask your learners which months have 30 days. Before doing any problems involving time, make sure that your learners know that a day has 24 hours. Don't take this for granted. Explain to learners that we can use two kinds of clocks to read time, an analog clock, which we use to tell the time in a 12-hour notation, and a digital clock, which we use to tell time in a 24-hour notation. Explain to the children that an analog clock is a 12-hour clock with a face and hands or arrows to show the time. Let children draw a clock to explain how the long and short hands tell the time. You should also give children a chance to draw a diagram in their books or on your blackboard to show how the 12-hour clock works. They should be able to explain that you write AM or PM to show whether they are talking about the start of the day up until noon or the afternoon up until midnight. Now show children a digital clock. Explain to the children that a digital clock shows 24-hour notation. For example, show the children a digital clock set to 600 hours. Ask them to tell you what the time is using a 12-hour notation and a 24-hour notation. Show the children an analog clock such as the one on the screen. Ask them what time it is in both 24 and 12-hour notation, and ask them what normally happens at their home at this time. The learners also need to understand that we don't write 24 hours because a new day would have started, and it is therefore represented as 00:00, as shown on the screen. This means that if we work in a 24-hour notation, then 12:00 represents 12 noon, and midnight is written as 00:00. In a 12-hour notation, then midday is written as 12 p.m. and midnight is written as 12 a.m. Refer learners to practical examples such as the ones on the screen. On these signs we can see how AM and PM is used to denote the time of day versus the time in the evening. You can also use this example. 1 o'clock in the afternoon can be written as 1300 hours or 1 p.m. Remember the teaching principle of letting learners practice. Give them opportunities to practice telling the time in 24-hour clock and 12-hour clock. The table on the screen shows the rules of converting time between seconds and minutes, minutes and hours, hours and day, and so on. This table will be made available for you to download via a link after this video. Make sure that the learners understand the rules. For example, to convert hours to minutes, they should multiply the hours by 60. They should understand that from large to small, they should multiply, and from small to large, they must divide. When calculating days, weeks and months, it is important to give the learners calendars to support them with their calculations. Inform them that they can also be asked to compare amounts of time to one another. For example, which is longer, 5 decades or 90 years? Tell them that they will first have to convert the decades to years in order to compare the years. In grade 6, learners are expected to be able to read time zone maps and calculate time differences based on different time zones. Discuss with your learners what a time zone is and how it affects people all around the world. Because the world rotates around the sun, we experience night and day at different places around the earth. This gives rise to the need for different time zones. Show them the map of time zones and identify with them some places which have the same time zones. This is an example of an exercise you can do with your learners. If it is 12 noon in Cape Town, what is the times in Sydney? Explain to them that from Cape Town you have to start adding to the right, and the time will be 2100 hours. Do a similar exercise for New York, London, etc. We have reached the end of this video about time. Remember to download the time conversion table on the link provided and to complete the quiz about this video before moving on to and watching the final video of this workshop.